I've spent a long time observing people, the rich and the poor. And you know what I've noticed? The unhappiest people aren't always the ones with empty wallets. The unhappiest are those with empty homes. I'm not talking about furniture or renovations. I'm talking about that feeling when you walk into a house and sense there's poverty here, even if it's filled with expensive things. The poverty of a home isn't about money. It's about what the home breathes. And there are always 3 specific reasons for it. If you recognize even one of them in your own life, you'll have a chance to change everything. Reason 1. Everyone in your home lives for themselves. The first cause of poverty is when a house turns into a hotel, when people just sleep there, but don't live together. Dad comes home from work, eats dinner, and goes to his room. Mum scrolls on her phone. The kids are in their headphones, lost in their own worlds. You live under the same roof, but each exists in a separate universe. Do you know what's most frightening? It happens quietly. Today you skip talking at dinner. You're tired. Tomorrow you don't watch a movie together. Everyone's busy. A week later, you can't remember the last time you all laughed together. A month later, you realize you no longer know what your child dreams about. A year later, you're living with strangers. And the house becomes a collection of separate cells, each with their own life, their own problems, their own joys. But they never intersect. They don't weave together. They don't become shared. I've seen wealthy families live like this. Huge houses where everyone has their own wing. Children raised by nannies. Parents seeing each other only on holidays. And everyone's unhappy. Because family isn't about sharing a last name. It's about sharing a life. Now imagine another kind of home. A small one. Every evening, everyone gathers around the table. Not just to eat, to talk. They know what happened in each other's day. They help each other with problems. They decide together where to go in the summer. They cry together when it hurts and rejoice together when it's good. There are rituals there. A Sunday breakfast cooked by everyone. A Friday movie night. A Saturday cleaning with music. Simple things that bind people stronger than any amount of money. Here's the secret. The wealth of a home isn't measured in square meters, but in shared memories. Not by the price of the furniture, but by the moments lived together. When a family is united, it's unstoppable. Any hardship becomes easier because you're not alone. Any joy feels brighter because it's shared. Any goal is achievable because you're pulling in the same direction. And when everyone lives for themselves, the home begins to fall apart. Maybe not physically, but inside, it's already dead. And no amount of money can fix that. Want to check whether there's unity in your home? Ask yourself, when was the last time you did something as a whole family? Not separately, not side by side, but together. If you can't remember, there it is. The first cause of your poverty. Reason 2. You live for the opinion of others. The second cause of poverty is when you build your life not for yourself, but for the eyes of others. This is the most insidious thief. It comes with a smile and whispers, "What will people think?" And suddenly, you're buying things you don't need. Working a job you hate. Living with someone you're unhappy with. Raising your children not the way you believe is right, but the way it's supposed to be. All just so that someone, somewhere, will nod approvingly. Do you know how much other people's approval costs? Exactly as much as you give for it. And usually, that's your whole life. I've met people who took out loans to buy cars just to impress neighbors who don't even know their names. I've seen those who worked 3 jobs to send their kids to a prestigious school because that's what you're supposed to do, even though what the kids really needed was just an hour a day with their parents. I've seen women who spent their last money on lavish weddings, falling into debt for years ahead. Why? So guests would say, "Wow." Those same guests will forget about your wedding in a week, and you'll be paying for their wow for the next 5 years. The saddest part is, these people never feel rich. Because the expectations of others are a bottomless pit. You can keep jumping higher, but the bar will always rise with you. Bought an apartment. Now you need a house. Got a car. Now you need a bigger one. Earned a good salary? Your neighbor earns more. And so you keep running on this treadmill, getting poorer inside with every step, because you're spending your life, the most precious thing you have, on what brings you no happiness. I know people who live in small apartments and drive old cars. And you know what? They're happy. Because their life is their own choice. They don't look over their shoulder. They don't ask for permission to live the way they want. They understand one simple truth. The only person you'll ever have to answer to for your life is yourself. When you go to bed tonight, none of your neighbors, colleagues, or relatives will be there with you. Only you and your thoughts. And only you will know, did you live this day the way you wanted, or the way others expected you to? A rich home is a place where people live by their own rules, where a mother can work or stay home with the kids, and both choices are right, where you can buy an old car and feel no shame, where you can say no to a loan for a new phone, because the old one still works. It's a place where people understand your opinion of yourself matters more than everyone else's combined. Here's a simple test. Imagine that tomorrow, everyone who knows you disappears. Every single person. You're alone on the planet. What would you change in your life? What would you stop doing? What would you start? If that list is long, you're living someone else's life. And it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. You're poor. Reason 3. You don't know how to be happy with what you have. Now for the 3rd reason, the hardest one to admit. Your home is poor because you live in the mode of just a little more, just a little more money, and life will begin. Just a little more savings, and I'll finally enjoy myself. One more promotion, one more renovation, one more purchase, and then, but then, never comes. Because just a little more isn't a goal. It's a way of life. A disease that eats you from the inside. You get your paycheck, and your first thought isn't, great. It's too bad it's not more. You buy a new phone, and instead of joy, you think you could have gotten a better one. You move into a new apartment, and immediately start dreaming of a house. You never live here and now. You're always there, in the future, where everything will be fine. Only that future keeps moving away, like the horizon. No matter how far you walk, it stays just as distant. And then life passes. Years, decades, and you're still waiting for the moment when you'll finally start living for real. When the right conditions for happiness will finally arrive. Do you know what's most frightening? Your children learn this from you, They watch and absorb the idea that happiness is always later. That first you must achieve something, earn something, become someone, and only then you can live. Until then, endure and work. And then they grow up and live the same way, in an endless race after a ghost, unable to stop and say, "You know what? I already have enough, and that's enough to be happy." I'm not saying you shouldn't strive for more. Strive, grow, evolve. But don't postpone happiness, because poverty isn't when you have little. Poverty is when little is never enough. I've seen people with enormous houses who were miserable because they wanted an even bigger one. I've seen those who earned millions but couldn't sleep peacefully because their neighbor earned more. And I've seen people who lived modestly, yet every evening thanked life for what they had. For a warm home, food on the table, a healthy family, a steady job. For the simple things most people don't even notice. And you know what? Those people were rich, truly rich, because they had learned to turn what they had into enough. Here's the secret. Gratitude isn't just a beautiful word. It's a superpower. When you start noticing and appreciating what you already have, you shift your focus. Instead of seeing what's missing, you see what's there. And suddenly, you realize you already have plenty. Try this experiment. Tonight, before you go to sleep, name 10 things you're grateful for. Exactly 10. Not vague phrases like "for my family," but specific ones. For the fact that my child hugged me first today. For waking up without back pain. For catching the bus on time. Do this every day for a month, and you'll see your life change. Not on the outside, but on the inside. You'll start noticing the good, valuing the moments, finding joy in small things. And your home will stop being poor, because poverty is a state of the soul, not of the wallet. So the 3 causes of your home's poverty are: first, everyone lives for themselves. No unity, no connection, no shared life. Second, you live for the opinions of others, building a life for an audience, not for yourself. Third, you don't know how to enjoy what you have, always chasing just a little more. The good news? All 3 are in your hands. You can gather your family around one table tonight. You can start living for yourself right now. You can thank life for what you have, this very minute. You don't need money to fix these things. You just need a decision, because wealth isn't numbers in a bank account. It's the quality of the life you live each day. It's the warmth that fills your home. It's the light in your loved one's eyes. You can be poor with $1 million in the bank, and you can be rich with empty pockets. It all depends on what's happening inside your home, and only that. The choice is yours. If you liked this video, please support it with a like, subscription, or comment. Your support helps this message reach those who need it most, right now.